All right, contractors and DIYers, this is a good one. This is how you drain a yard that's flat with no slope. You have a backyard that's flat with no slope. We run into this all the time. People are asking, how do I drain it? What do I do? Well, it's simple. We're going to show you how. But stay to the end, get all the details. You'll learn a lot. You'll be able to apply it to your situation. All right, man. Enjoy. Welcome to the French Drain Man channel. I'm your host, Robert Sherwood. If you want to know how to drain a yard that's built on a swamp, built in floodplain, built too low, this is the video. I'm going to show you how we take our backyard sump pump system, the same one that we ship all over the lower 48 in the United States, and we're going to show you how to put that to use. I'm going to do a walkthrough, explain all the details. Stay tuned, pay attention, stay to the end. We're in a beautiful neighborhood. Oakland County, Oakland Township, Michigan. Beautiful. There's a lot of just natural runoff, floodland basically. What's nice about, living in an area that there's just acres and acres and acres of wetlands, you don't have, homes behind you. You don't have all these rooftops. And it's nature, a lot of nature. So we got a situation here. You can see all the water. But we've had so much rain this year that this water's higher than it's ever been before. All right, we got wetlands behind this house. The water is higher than his backyard patio. So we got to put a pump system in. All right, we're going to have to come right off the electric panel. So we're going to do rigid pipe down the side of the house. We're going to do 75 feet of rigid pipe. We're going to come around the house. We got to go under here. I'll show you in a minute. Grab this. It's got a big hole in it. We want all new, brand new one. Just run that to right here. Done. All right, so this one here is too low. And believe it or not, we got to take the original pipe and we got to put a cap on it and tape it because the water's backfeeding and flooding in here. So what's happening is this water is super high. It's never been this high, but we've had so much rain this year. The water's backfeeding in that pipe and flooding it. So we have to take the pipe, the old pipe, and we have to put a cap on it and tape it up so that water can't come this way. Then we got to take that downspout, make a hole, and take it out through here, and I'll show you where we're going with that. We're going to pull up all these pavers right here. We're going to do 2 French drains, 2 pipes, two blue pipes, 2 8-slot. Let's stay off of that wall at least 18 inches because it's so soft it's going to undermine. It's going to make for a problem. So we're going to go all the way to here. Then when we get over here, we're going to do our sump pump system. It's going to be a half horse. We'll come up over the side, and we got to run the discharge line. It's going to be a half horse pump. It's got to be a half horse, so make sure you bring a half horse pump. We're going to run the discharge over to here, and we're just going to dump it out here. And we got to take this right here. We got to get rid of this. So we got to hook up. We got to come this way and then put a pop-up right here. Done. This used to be a gravity drain, but now that the water levels get so high during rains, it's flooding in here, and it totally flooded the man's whole basement. He had to tear up all his vinyl and all his carpeting. He had a refinished basement, and it just made a mess of it. So, again, take up some of this herringbone, take up some of these brick pavers. Don't worry, the base material inside this patio is going to pull water everywhere. The water's going to move in the base material just fine. So I'll put the 2 French drain pipes and the conduit in the same trench. Now, when you get over here, put a big chamber on this system. Make sure you bring a lot of chamber for the sump pump system. In the back of this house, the grade is flat. The grade is flat, and there's no slope. Many walkouts are forced walkouts. What a forced walkout creates is you have steps coming up out of the walkout. So this patio is lower than the grade around it. It had to be in order to build this house and make it a walkout. There's no big deal. Forced walkouts, that's not an issue. That's not a problem. That's not what happened here. It wasn't like, oh, there shouldn't have been. With a good drainage system, it's just fine. So this is a beautiful house in Oakland Township, Michigan. We're going to go through it. I'm going to tell you all the different things that we did, why we did what we did. Now, water always seeks the low point. So the low point happens to be this pit patio. We want to put our sump pump system inside this patio. Now, keep in mind, base material under brick pavers, there's void. You have sand and stone aggregate underneath your brick pavers. There's void. When you have granulars of sand, water flows through sand. When you have some sort of aggregate, rock, there's voids. Water flows through that. So what happens, a patio is basically a giant dry well because of all the base material that's under it. The water just travels through this base material. So this was simple. We knew that if we just went ahead and pulled up these pavers and removed a bunch of the aggregate that was under the pavers, go ahead and put some French drains in, because we're going to run 2 pipes of high octane to one of our backyard sump pump systems for the north. We're going to have 51 inches of chamber. We're going to have a half-horse M98 Zoller sump pump, and then we're going to have a heater in this unit. We're going to show you guys the full installation, state of the end. I think the guys killed it. The restoration was literally so good that the patio was better than before we took it apart. Now, there was so much water in the aggregate, and there was so much water being held in all the stone that it was discoloring the paver. So yes, all the water that was coming from that swampy area, all that water was backfeeding into the subsurface soil, the granulars. Where there was void, water travels through void. That's why we put pipes in the ground, because a pipe creates a giant void for water to travel through. You can see all the water that's filling where we're putting our backyard sump pump system for the north. We're going to set it right there, and we had to keep pumping that out and pumping that out as the water kept coming in. Now, when you have ground like this that just keeps on bringing water, you want to definitely have a system with a really big chamber, because you want to cut down the amount of times that your sump pump is going to cycle. It takes a longer time to fill a bigger chamber. It reduces the runs. Every sump pump system, everyone, doesn't matter who makes it, it has only so many life cycles in it. It can only turn on, run, pump water out, and turn off so many times before it fails. By putting in this really big chamber, we're going to have a system that's going to collect water. It's going to allow the water to collect. It's going to reduce the amount of cycles where the pump turns on and has to be turned back off. You end up wearing these pumps out at the switch. That's usually where they wear out first. And then what happens? Your basement gets flooded. So we have a downspout that we grabbed up underneath this deck. We took it to a D-box so that we can collect shingle, gravel, and debris first. So the guys did a really nice job here. You can see the distribution box. That's what D-box stands for. That's going to grab any organic material coming off the rooftop. They did a great job. They went ahead and pulled power. I'll show you right here. This is where the panel was in the house. Instead of going through the house, it was easier to run outside of the house. Yes, we use rigid conduit. That way, if somebody jumps on a shovel, it's no big deal. And then we make the most of a trench. So we have 2 French drain pipes in that trench along with our rigid electrical. So DIYer, pay attention. Utilize these trenches. Use them for everything. I think the guys nailed it. I think they really did. So you can see just by the vegetation that's growing on the side and behind this house, this is all floodplain.
And this house was built right there on the edge of the floodplain. The guys did a great job. I mean, beautiful system. So I love running 2 pipes. Again, the pipe creates a giant void. Water's going to travel through void. Water's going to find void. We're already building it in the lowest point on the property. This is where the flooding happens. The water ends up in this patio. It finds its way into the basement. Always build your system in the lowest point of the yard. In this case, a forced walkout, you're always going to find that behind a home that's a forced walkout, that'll be the lowest point. Flat, no slope, and this double barrel French drain system is going to rip. And you can see that we have our backyard sump pump system that we put the added chamber on, and we ship this all over the lower 48. If you're not in the north, you don't need it with a heater. You can get it with 2 pumps. Very, very cost effective. It's one of our most popular, completely tuned for the M98, whether you order it with 1 or whether you purchase it with 2. All 2 pump systems should be put on separate circuits. Always put a 2 pump outdoor sump pump system on separate circuits. That way, if you blow a fuse, you still have a pump that's working for you. We're using an aggregate that is round rock. It's a cobblestone. It's 1.5 inches in diameter, and it's going to create the largest voids for us. We already put a double barrel French drain in the bottom of this trench. We're going to move so much water through the giant void that a 4-inch pipe creates, and we have 2 of those. Now, always use a really good fabric. We have a really, really good 4-ounce fabric, double punched. The flow rate is insane, and it's going to prevent all that aggregate, all that sand from entering the perforated pipe. You don't want to take out a good French drain system because you didn't use a good drainage fabric. Now, trust me, we've been building the same systems for the past 35 years. We have been preaching drainage fabric for longevity. If you don't use a good drainage fabric, you will end up with a system with an early expiration date, all your hard work, all your money spent, all your sweat equity for what? For a system that's put on a timer. If you just invest in a good drainage fabric, all your hard work, all that sweat equity, that investment you made, this thing's going to last forever. When you have something to separate the subsoil from your drainage stone and your drainage pipe, you're going to prevent all of the void from getting clogged up. I can't stress this enough. This has been something that we've stood true. People always want to know why our systems work so good. People always want to know why our systems last forever. They don't need to be replaced like the ones that the handyman in a van, the Chuck and the truck are putting in. The guys that are not using fabric and they're beating on their chest, their day will come when all their customers start calling, because you can only jet those systems out for so long before they're completely clogged in the aggregate and the water no longer can even make it to the pipe. If you're not going to DIY a project like this, make sure you hire a contractor that has equipment. The reason why corners get cut is usually because a contractor doesn't have the equipment to do the job right in the first place. If he just has a van with a utility trailer, you already know you're not going to get very much stone because they're not equipped to haul stone. They're not going to dig out and remove a lot of clay because they're not equipped to do haul away. They don't have a big dump truck, big dump trailer. They just do not have the right equipment to do this project. That's the truth. That's why they do just a temporary. I call it a temporary because it's going to work for a few years. If you're lucky, you'll get a few years out of it, and it's going to be minimal. They're minimalists to begin with. So as you can see, our client got their money's worth in drainage fabric. They got their money's worth in stone. And we didn't skimp. We didn't buy the cheap pea stone that has very little void and it's full of sand and it's filthy. Went ahead and we bought the really good round rock, the 1.5-inch round rock that's washed. Has really big voids. When you put 1.5-inch round rock together, it just creates a lot of void. So you're going to move water. You're going to, see the guys meticulously go about cutting this fabric in and pinning it. Look at this. This is just such a beautiful, beautiful job that they've done. Now, don't overlap the fabric too much. That is a common mistake made. If you have a heavy overlap, now you're not going to get the drainage. You're not going to see the drainage. See, our fabric is double punched. When you have all these holes, millions of holes in the fabric, and you go ahead and you overlap it, you can't get these little holes to line up. That's the problem. I think the reason why a lot of guys don't use fabric is because they never knew how to install it properly in the first place. Now, keep in mind when you're doing a project like this, your roof runoff is going to be key. These gutters that come down right near the walkout, they're going to contribute hundreds, if not thousands of gallons of water during these big rain events. You're going to have issues. You're going to have problems. So when you go to fix a job like this, you have to go after it all. You have to build a good French drain system in the lowest point of the yard where it's going to be easy to find the water. The water is going to find your system. Collect it, now lift it with a backyard outdoor sump pump system. Now, don't just stop there. Now you can feed it a bunch of water and put a bunch of water through it, but you can take a lot of stress off this system if you route all your roof runoff far away so that it doesn't even have to handle it. We do have one downspout in this system. There was no way around it. We had to pump that water out. It just has to go through our system. It's in the lowest part of the yard. It's behind the house. It's underneath the deck. So it is tied in our system. I think the guys are killing it on the restoration of this patio. They went about it methodically. They took this patio apart systematically. They really know how to set themselves up. As they removed the brick, they were cleaning it so that there was no sand stuck on the sides, so that it's quick and easy assembly like new brick. Right now, they're just going ahead and they're compacting it and they're leveling a little bit of screeding sand on top of the drainage fabric. This won't hurt a thing. It'll still take in water, no problem. It's coming together really nice. So pay attention about how the whole system is out of sight. It's not an eyesore. We were able to very surgically go about putting this system in place. We're going to restore this yard 100%. It's actually going to be better than when we actually took this patio apart. It had some dips and low spots. We're going to correct all that as we piece it back together. Again, this thing is going to be 100% when we're done. You can see that it's this minimal impact on the landscape, on the beauty of the home. That's key. We don't want drainage to be an eyesore. Now notice how we took the discharge line. We went under the seat wall. We went under the block wall. You can do that. The blocks are bonded together. They're bonded together and they're laid in a runner's bond, so they're locked tight. You can go underneath if you're very strategic about how you do it. Can't be, in there trying to use your backhoe or your excavator. You got to go under there with a thin, narrow shovel. You just need to get your discharge line under there. Now, we like to put a sleeve in. A sleeve, that's a piece of Schedule 40 that we put our flexible 1.5-inch Schedule 40 discharge line through. That way, if there's ever any issues, we want to make sure that we build this with service in mind. Now, keep in mind that our Schedule 40 Flex, it's designed to freeze and not break. That is indestructible Schedule 40. Rigid Schedule 40 for the indoors, that's no good. That's going to freeze outside. That's going to split. That's going to crack. That's going to break. But if you have the Schedule 40 Flex, where when it freezes up, it'll actually have some give. It will not split. It will not crack. So in the event that something unforeseen ever happens with one of our systems, we know that we built it indestructible. There's no way, no how we're going to end up with split lines, cracks. If the heater fails and the homeowner's unaware and things freeze up, it's not going to be the end of the world. We're not going to have to do any of the foundational stuff again because it was done right the first time. As you guys know, we built French Drain Man on that slogan alone. You want to do it right the first time so that you're not burdened with having to go about doing that same task a second time. Having double the money put into a project just doesn't make sense. Hire the guys that are equipped to do it right the first time, and I promise you, it's going to be headache-free. You're going to really enjoy your outdoor living space, your home. It's going to improve it 100%, no issues. So right now we're getting to the point to where we got to cut around the lid. You know, this is going to be the only thing that you can visually see, and I want to keep this pump where it's accessible. I want to be able to get at this pump. I know that this pump is going to probably last 15 years. It's a Zoller M98. It's really built for abuse. It's got a thermo switch, so I know it's not going to ever get so hot that it's going to burn itself up because it'll shut itself down so that it can cool before it turns back on again. If you have a serious enough water problem, definitely build a duplex. We offer a duplex where you can drop in the second pump. Very reasonable. We ship these all over the lower 48. You can have a pump with a heater, or you can have two pumps with a heater. All right, everybody, until the next video. French Drain Man is the leader in indoor and outdoor sump pump systems, protecting your family against mold and mildew, as well as flood protection. The industry leaders and innovators.